Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó
The Ashen Forge. The Ashen Forge.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin, back with another Sunday night of Ashes of Creation content. How y'all doing?
Doing all right.
I did not have to deal with the hurricane, so I'm great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, on that account, sure. Like we're sitting pretty here, but fire season ain't over in SoCal just yet.
Yeah, I am not in Eastern Tennessee. Eastern Tennessee has been absolutely devastated, and that sort of Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina. My brother-in-law actually had to get evacuated, and one of my wife's best friends growing up many years ago, we went to her wedding in a place called Chimney Rock, North Carolina, and that town no longer exists. It was literally the entire town was swept away.
Wow.
It's crazy. But here we got a lot of rain, but not that much rain. I think they got like 30 inches of rain. We got somewhere around 6, so we're all good. But yeah, crazy times.
Yeah. Well, it's weather events are a well-known phenomenon, and this is literally just the start of the terrible East Coast weather disaster season, I guess.
Well, no,
Hopefully not.
We're late.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, actually it was
Oh,
crazy.
it should have actually started by now, you're saying?
Oh, it's been in season for a while, but yeah, the peak was actually very quiet, and now actually there's another one. I don't know why we're talking weather, but there's another one and the exact same track that is following what this one just did. So it's building down in sort of Gulf, and we'll see where it ends up. But
I like that there's the idea that the devs actually have some manual control over that. So if some group is getting too big and too smug, that they can just be like, you know what? Fuck you very much. Here comes a tornado. Your node is about to get raw. In a video game, it's not a big deal. Like the game, I think Eco is the one where it's literally built around see how much of a society you can build up before the meteor hits, and then see how well your society is able to survive it. So that's it's not that isn't a bad, it's a good thing to be able to have that level of change and things occur, especially if it's because you forgot to kill the winter dragon that's been hanging around for a few seasons, and it's like, I'm bored of this. I've accumulated so much power. It's time to make a storm happen. So that'll be interesting to see. But of course, in real life, all these weather events are absolutely horrendous. The rains, the wind, the fires, and the heat, and I know there's been a little bit of seismic activity going on a little more recently, enough for people on areas to feel and make it trend on Twitter and stuff. So yeah, that's it's a thing. In real life it sucks. In video games it only sucks if it happens to your place, but if the node that you're contesting that you wanna knock down so you can build up just got hit with a major earthquake, well, hey, praise that earthquake machine relic that you got. It turned out to be effective.
all right. Well,
So,
first thing I want to start with is just
go for it.
Congratulations. Well, we don't know just yet, but Margaret is officially on maternity leave. I saw her post that on Twitter. So at some point, there's going to be a new life in the world. So
I will say
Mhm.
congratulations on her being able to get all the loose ends tied up and ready to the best extent she can, and then likewise that they have hired and invested the faith in the skills of the person that they have now hired to be the content creator manager. Um, I imagine that there's going to be more on that from Intrepid going forward, but it is definitely a very nice thing uh, for her to actually. She's been working real hard. Like if you just follow the game and you don't know about the other things, she had 2 like professional quality virtual tabletop sessions going with her own group of friends or colleagues or whatever that's been going for years, and both of those just wrapped up in like the past couple of months. So yeah, what I mean wrapping up the loose ends, literally, that gal has been
yeah.
crazy busy, and so I appreciate that she's able to get a break for the best of reasons, and to be able to have the time and opportunity to really be able to take all the time she needs for that before returning to the wild world of the Alpha 2 release that I would imagine she's going to be walking back into.
I started playing Fablecraft, which is it's a virtual tabletop co-op RPG game.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
I
kind
know
of fun.
Golden Feather was talking about using that for some campaigns.
Yeah, I was playing it with my 4th grade friend who discovered Dungeons and Dragons on YouTube and wanted somebody to play with. Um, and so it's like, oh yeah, you might be able to. This would be good for you to practice your game master skills with. And so I was playing around, and I stumbled upon Margaret doing a session with her group of Fablecraft. I was like that very weekend. She'd done it like months ago.
Interesting.
It's like, oh, okay. Margaret gets around. She's doing a bunch of stuff.
But yeah, y'all. I guess what we can say right now is October is going to be a crazy month. Uh,
Hmm.
Not just for October 25th, but probably a few dates before that as well. So keep your
Hmm.
eyes peeled. Uh, it's going to be crazy busy. And
Speaking of October 25th, I was just thinking this morning, because it's November, I mean, that's October 25th and November 8th. And I was like, hey, wait a second, when is Extra Life? And that's November 2nd. That's like right dab in the middle. That's gonna be crazy.
well,
Um,
Now I've actually got I'm wondering if Mags is going to fly out for that one, or if she's going to stay back and kind of hang out and maybe tune in remotely and join some of the shenanigans. But
I
I think this would be
expect
the
if she
first time we
participates, it would
haven't
be
had her at
remotely.
one.
I would
I would
think it
I
would
would
be
hope so.
remotely, but also I would the sleep for all of them. I don't know how any of they aren't getting any younger.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they kind of take naps and shifts during like some of the side events going on, but
I've got to do that for the phase 1
rest is
already.
important.
It's going to be really interesting.
yeah. I was recapping. I did not get to watch the live stream live because work has been absolutely nuts. But was watching, catching up today, and that's when I think somebody actually, I don't know if it was Bill or who it was, somebody mentioned, oh, it might have been Margaret. Like this is the last live stream um, before Alpha
Phase 1.
2, and
Mhm.
the next stream we'll be playing with you. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
like oh shit, that's right. We're right there, uh,
Mhm.
waiting all this time, and here it is. So I don't know. Um, I'm super, super excited to get to play with a lot of you and see what everyone thinks. I should step back, not play test. Very
Right.
important. Um,
Right.
which I was curious about this. I could not remember back to Alpha 1. Did they ever do an Alpha 1 guide like they did with this?
I don't
I don't remember that.
remember a guide being done in that way. Of course, it's been a few years. They might have given us some details in some ways to kind of set expectations, but at the same time, I think things were kind of like a little closed doors during part of it, and maybe they wouldn't have done that.
Well, I'm curious. Pocketstart says they did class showcase of each of the three classes they won. Yeah, but
Hmm.
this is a little different. And I'm curious how much of this was just to prepare people almost for what isn't there, um, as it was as sort of a guide. I know in part of this, Stephen had mentioned, I think he said he saw a lot of mentions of expectations, like what they saw in Alpha 1, meaning that there were sort of unrealistic expectations that he was starting to see in forums and Discord and stuff similar to Alpha 1. And I wonder if that's what drove this sort of Alpha 2 guide, was more so just this is what it really is. This is what you're going to be testing for us. Because again, I think they've put themselves in a sort of unfavorable position by having so many really great, and they've been great. I mean, a lot of their live streams have been excellent, excellent stuff. But it sets sort of this expectation that, again, I think several months ago they realized, oh, well, we probably should start actually making that a little bit more realistic. So I just wonder if that's why they did this guide.
There's a whole big thing, maybe even two threads about that in the forums. So,
About what?
um, it looks great, and I think they never show any of the bugs. Why don't they show more bugs? It looks totally playable right now. It's gonna be like a scam. It's gonna feel like a scam when people actually get in.
Well,
Like, I mean,
not a
don't
scam, but
be surprised that they're not gonna make monthly videos about all the bugs they're struggling with. I mean,
Yeah, don't worry. As soon as Alpha 2 starts and people can start streaming it, there's going to be compilations of bugs. It's just
yeah.
going to be like I may personally even do some bug hunting because I'd actually like doing that. Like I've done QA enough to not actually hate it and kind of enjoy aspects of it. So,
Hmm.
to that extent, yeah, if people start coming across something absolutely weird and wacky and it becomes a sort of trending thing, but they haven't quite been able to put their finger on what exactly it is, or maybe the steps to getting to that point are kind of difficult. Yeah, I might muck around and try to do the replication steps. First see any order to be able to go from logging in and launching to causing the bug to occur, and then as I kind of go through it more and understand the nuances, I can start paring down the various different steps until I can give you, hopefully less than 6 steps that aren't too wild in order to execute this wacky thing. And then from there, it might be a bug within a bug, and it's like, well, it'll already be fixed when this thing upstream is fixed. But the players might not realize that where that fix might be at and be frustrated because this thing that keeps happening is a game breaking bug. That sounds like a kind of fun sort of challenge for me. But um, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people streaming and posting and sharing a whole lot of bugs during Alpha 2. So they don't need to do it themselves. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. We'll find them. We'll find them.
I was especially confused when one person said, "Well, I'm concerned not so much about phase one, but by phase three, when people start getting into phase three." And I'm like, by phase one, the devs don't have to show bugs because the NDA is lifted, and you know, gamers
Yeah.
will be playing, will be posting lots of stuff. It's no NDA, so.
um, sorry, there was a mention. We had a lot we can go through with this, but there was pockets talking about the three classes. My question did not get answered. I did not expect it to. I forget exactly how I worded it. It was something along the lines of, actually, maybe I can find it here. Um, I asked what has been the barrier to showcasing the Tolnar in a playable state. Uh, did not think that one would actually get answered. It did not get answered. Interestingly enough, though, Vacnar did respond to it like they normally do. And I probably shouldn't read too much into this, and sorry, Vacnar, if I am. But his answer was, we need to finish the other 8 before we start working on Tolnar. Which then leaves me thinking, where is Tolnar at this point? Like, has it been touched? Is it just concept art? Um,
They
Barely
literally
concept
don't
art.
need to have touched it at this point.
yeah, I just
I'm not saying that they haven't. I'm saying maybe they don't need to have touched it just yet.
Mhm.
I'm sure
Yeah.
they have some ideas about lore and civilizations and how they're gonna how that little like is it gonna be a caste system? Is it going to be more like a each people has their different specialties sort of thing, but then it became a caste system because the warrior class ended up being like, hey, we realize we're stronger than you other two, and we're just gonna flex our muscle because either we're here defending you and you're safe, or we aren't and you're not safe, or we're actively attacking you and you're not safe. We can find the way to do your farming and your crafting and your devotion to the the deities that we've discovered or whatever, but we're top dogs, we're the big lion bear people or whatever of the group, and so you know we're the ones who are wearing the big Tolnar pants out here. That would be interesting. They don't have to tell us any of that. They don't even have to actually know and be solid on it. Remember, it was a stretch goal. Everything that's a stretch goal is one of those things that they can take a little bit more time on. It wasn't originally in the original plan. The original plan was years ago, and a lot's changed since then. So one could still argue, yeah, in all this time, they should figure something out. But it's not as necessary. The core 8 races, just get them together, and we'll start finding more of the issues and nuances. And I think one of the other challenges is that they want the armor sets and the style of how they depict clothing on the characters to be really, really solid first, because that's going to dictate how they work with whatever modularity they put into the Tolnar, so their different body shapes and forms will still be able to wear the attire properly. So it could very well be that because they're going to be the most technically difficult to complete, that they're just leaving them to the end because they want to make sure they do it right. Again, they can do it in the order they want to. I'm sure they have plenty of good reasons, and more power to them. I would like to know more about the Tolnar. I think lore is probably cheaper to show than art right now.
Mhm.
There was another mention. Sorry, I'm kind of moving on. If you want to talk more about Tonar, let me know. There was another. Who was it? Oh, Mr. Noobtastic said watching Steven play terribly sets a nice low bar too. LOL. That's hilarious. That's true. I also
What do
like
you
how.
mean? He made the jump. He made the jump. Come
I,
on.
well, I
I wanted to
laugh.
put yakety sacks while they were trying to. The rest of them were trying to make the
Yeah, but
jump, but
did you hear him talk about it afterwards? Like
yeah, that
he
he kept flubbing the jump, and the other people are the ones that
yeah.
got it, and so that in the back of my head, I was thinking, all right, he knew what he was doing coming in. He made a character that was as tall as possible this time, so it has the extra hops and grab to get over, and the other two didn't, and so they ended up not having like the body mass and all the IK hookups and stuff to grab and pull themselves up. So that's why they kept flubbing, because they were shorter. I hope that's not the case, but I'll totally laugh if it is. They'll never tell me, and I'll never know.
Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious because he went on that whole oh well, when I don't have to
Yeah.
lead the
I'm
stream
a
and
golden god, he
and know
said.
know where
Yes.
the camera is and have to know my lines, I actually play very well. And then afterwards, oh no, actually this was the second take. There was another one where I couldn't make it, so I had to use GM powers. Uh,
The joke
Cracks it.
about having a button under his desk that turns off Bill's computer.
Hey, you know what? He's having fun. That is all that matters is he is having fun. Um, Unmatched 45. They need to keep the game under NDA come the 25th of next month. It is not
It
ready for
would be
public.
nice if they it would be nice if they were able to NDA phase 1, I think. But words have already been said that can't be reversed upon. And so they're a little bit locked into it. They could still say no. We decided we have to NDA A1 or phase 1 of A2. Yeah, I mean they could still do that. I know a lot of people are going to be like, "But you said," and then they'll be like, I know, but just wait till December whenever we're able to start phase 2, and then we'll lift it.
Well, was it this
They
stream?
don't
Last
have
stream,
to.
there was somewhere that there was this sort of like it wasn't a full dedicated. Um, no, we will not. Keep NDA. Like there was a sort of a hint of, well, you know, if things go that have to be that route, then we'll do it. But
Where I
I
could see
mean,
it being NDA is that maybe they've got stuff going on during the scheduled time periods, but that they have additional weekday testing going on for just the spot testers. That could be a way that they're able to do stuff that's maybe a little more experimental, while at the same time having like a more stable build that the normal weekend tests are going to go on. So that would be another way they could do it, is just do the NDA part during stuff that isn't non-NDA.
real A2 doesn't start until May of 2025 anyway. So lifting the NDA just helps us feel better about starting so early with
yeah,
so little ready.
I think they have to. I think it's you just have it's uh, if they wait, no matter what, it's they just have to pull the band-aid off, right? You just have to do it. You just have to go and get it out there, whatever it is, how good it is, how bad it is, whatever people are going to think, they're going to think. And at this point, you just need to do something. So, I mean, I really don't think that they will keep it under NDA, but you know, whatever they do, it's their game. Steven's prerogative. So, um,
Our prerogative not to play as well. But uh, yeah, no, it's good to be able to get back into the game after 3 years.
but the mention about the server tech, yeah, which is what they're doing this first phase. I put this in, I think, our Discord. It was PAX Day made a comment. Every Friday, PAX Day puts fairly technical posts in their Discord, and they're pretty long usually. And this last Friday, they actually put an interesting post because they're on Unreal 5 as well about the server possibilities with just native Unreal 5. And I forget what it was, like 100, I want to say 100 to 150, which
Yeah,
make
100, 150, or maybe it's 150 to 200, which
200. Hmm.
that's great when you think about the origins of first person shooters, where like 8v8 was all you could do on dial up and have it even be remotely fun and playable. Then as internet improved, 16v16, eventually the technology managed to meet up with that. 32v32, even 64v64 started being not only viable, but viable with decent net code and rollback and hit detection and all of that stuff. And I feel like after we kind of hit that 64v64, it starts to get into this nebulous zone where you've got to be developing your own in-house server tech, or using a good solution that somebody else has developed. And if we all go back to the understanding that the Unreal Engine was built first for making first-person shooters, and then all the other application it can do is all the other features it provides on top of that, then it makes sense that out of the box there's going to be an upward limit of what a going back to their previous stream, what a single core server blade is going to be able to chunk out for them compared to their custom solutions that they've developed. So depending on how the netcode has been done with that and how the layers are set up and organized and managed and subdivided, it could be that they have a long ways to go to be able to increase that cap while having all the other interactable components in the same area where people are playing. I think that's now. Remind me again, how interactable is that game world? Is it like interact with the terrain and deform it, attack any building and it takes damage and that sort of stuff? Because that would all increase the amount of stuff the server has to be able to deal with, which then reduces the amount of players you can actually have doing something in a given area, because all of their actions and activities have more things that need to potentially be tracked and updated. So there could be other layers of tech involved with why it's only at a certain point.
I think they're also working with some version of meshing as well. But yeah, I think the interesting issue for me is that Unreal Engine 6 is supposed to be better for multiplayer, which leads me to believe that Intrepid is going to definitely try to move to Unreal Engine 6. And that is probably going to cause some more delays.
Why? If they're creating their own, though, why would they move to 6 if they're just basically taking UE5 netcode and just like completely creating their own solution, which is what it sounds like they're doing. They really wouldn't need UE6 then, would they?
They're going for it. I bet UE6 will be better at it than whatever Intrepid comes up with.
Well, maybe it's Intrepid that sells whatever they come up with to Unreal. So
Yeah. Okay.
somebody might. You never know.
From Kitbash 3D, they say the latest on Unreal 6, no release date confirmed, and in the bullet points below that, Verse will be built in Unreal 6. Will be built in. They didn't phrase that well. Verse will be built into Unreal 6, is I think what they meant to say. Unreal 6 will be will be metaverse focused. I put an asterisk on the use of that word metaverse. And Unreal 6 will enhance the creator economy. I think part of what's going on with Unreal 6 itself is a transition to improving the curation and ability to get assets from between different projects and creators to be able to utilize and implement. Now, just taking all of that on face value, that doesn't exactly sound like something that they need to move to. And one of the other things that it doesn't also say is there going to be a performance gain compared to staying on 5? Is there going to be a performance gain on older and weaker hardware compared to Unreal 5? And what are the sorts of things that are going to be the difference between continuing to build up and do more with the 5 engine versus the 6 engine, that it's possible that they actually run them both concurrently instead of having you're using this one, now you want to use this one because it's just better sort of thing. There's still games that are running strong on an older engine. I want to say DCUO is still running on Unreal 3. And Unreal 3 I was in early college.
Mm-hmm.
That was a while ago. It was like 2003 or something. But let me tell you, what was so wacky to me, I went in at like an E3 or a GDC back when Unreal 3 was still fairly on the newer side, and someone outside their booth is like, "Hey, you want to see something cool? Come here." And of course, that's music to my ears at a trade show. So I trotted my happy ass right on in and sat down and saw what was effectively a demo of the Unreal 4 engine. So it's kind of an odd thing to think about how far out they're already working on the next engine before the current one's even released. It still feels like, I mean, we're at like 5.44 or whatever. Unreal 5 still feels new to me. And for 6 to already be talked about on the horizon ish, depending on how far your telescope goes, whether it's on the horizon or you just see in blurry clouds. But I don't know if they're going to switch to 6 or if they even need to switch to 6. If
And
all
I
of
hope
their
them
tech
give
is,
them their 500 versus 500 battles, they'll switch to 6.
if it helps with that, for sure. I mean, if there's something that it does where it organizes the data better for network stuff, that would make sense. Um, the odd kind of little silly in the back of my head is the idea that of course they're going to move to Unreal Engine 6. In the background, Steven's already been working with Epic Games, and that's how they were able to get their server tech like this. And now they're like secret tech partners, but it hasn't been announced. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it is. But, that's kind of a funny thought I've also had since they rolled out the tech stuff and we're talking about all the unique solutions they made. What if they were actually also in the process of developing the next generation of server tech that they can effectively license, partner, whatever, white box into the next Unreal Engine, so all the games on that are super kick-ass? Because as much as Steven wants to see this game do great, I think he also wants to see other games just doing better in general.
Mm-hmm.
So we
I know that other games need to have 500 versus 500 battles, but okay.
so we also, like I said, got to see Mr. Bill Tross. That was the first time. How long has he
He
been there now?
exists.
He's been there for, I want to
Almost
say,
a year. Almost a year, I think.
almost 1 year. I feel like he was close to 2 years. We'll have to look back on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he is definitely he's somebody that I really appreciate hearing from and talking to and seeing on things. His reputation, his very good positive reputation follows him around. He's good stuff. He's good peoples to have for sure. So I was glad to see him on there. I felt like he maybe wanted to say more, but didn't, because he could have said a lot that was above
Hmm.
and beyond what they wanted to be talking about, because he's at a very high level on a lot of things, and I bet he probably knows a lot of lore that he wouldn't want to say by, as an example. June 2023. Okay, so it's been a little over a year. Thank you, RS Blended. Also, hey, the ads do seem like they haven't been as bad since you switched things out.
Oh,
Obviously, we're still gonna get them, but
I snoozed it.
uh,
That's why. um, yeah, he for someone that hasn't been on cam, he likes. I mean, he certainly is chatty. I liked
Mm-hmm.
hearing from him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would almost though rather sit in a room with him and talk about the old time stories. Like, it's fascinating how many of these games start off as just campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And also the expansions. He was talking about some of the EverQuest expansions and
Mm-hmm.
were actual, like, I guess, D&D campaigns that they ran. Um, I would just love to hear some of that. What it was like to be in the room, sort of early EverQuest, or even with the UO devs, and like some of those thoughts that were brand new to the world, kind of how they got put in place. I think that would be a shit ton of fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of funny to me when you mention that, because it reminds me of the story about how the Dragonlance series was actually the initial first play of the Forgotten Realms environment, and the campaign they played through that was then dedicated to what became a fairly popular book series. That went on for a while and it had a lot of spin-offs, and the two lead authors, they definitely went places with that one, and got to have very, very long and broad careers afterwards. So I like the idea that people are taking their previous developments and experience and stories they've told, and when they come to the opportunity to create content and lore and narratives for a game, they base it on something that's already deep and rich and dynamic. And if it isn't, exactly right for the world that you're putting it in, well, that's fine. There's probably different species of creatures, different, big bad creatures, and your heroes and your gods and all of that being different. So you're probably going to have to do some adaptation anyway. But to just think that, like, this being Steven's baby, the Vera campaign of Pathfinder, is like just a sort of EverQuesting compared to the Bill Trust experience, that he was able to take his, from, I think he said, 6th grade forward, the campaigns that he was DMing, and aggregate all of those stories together into the content that became what we knew EverQuest to have. Like, that's fantastic. Good on them. Seriously.
So
To have the legend who did it first, and then to have him on the project where it's also being done again. Like, that's great.
So we had this 2.5 hours of discussion. Their streams are just always long, especially given that the actual gameplay one was only 30 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that.
I actually don't remember how long the stream was, because I was some combination of watching it and some combination of breaking down all of the catmint I had harvested in the backyard a little while ago, long enough for it to get dry. And let me tell you, breaking that down using my herbalism skills, I've got a bag of catmint leaves. I got a bunch of catmint twigs. It can be, woven into something perhaps. The leaves can be used for like a potpourri or cat attractor. I've got like two things that look kind of like some formerly illegal substance that are just full of like the loose catmint buds, and then one even smaller container that's got a lot of the pollen and the stuff that was smaller than the seeds itself, and of course a bag of seeds, because what's the point of growing your own catmint if you're not going to get seeds that are now acclimated to your environment so you can plant more catmint. So yeah, that's and I don't know if we had a visitor, because I thought I heard a real funny bird outside this morning. First time I thought it was a bird, and then the second time I heard, no, that's a cat who wants to go back in, and they're probably high. So, what's the actual utility purpose in like a game like Ashes of Creation? Oh, well, alchemy, you can use it to make your teas, you can use it to make potions, or as a hunter, it's just one of your bait trap things. You put your little satchel of catmint out there, or like throw some catmint on a piece of raw meat, and then when some big cat comes around, you jump on it and wrestle it, and then when it's like, okay, I give up, then it's like, all right, you're my riding buddy now, or pet buddy. I don't actually know how the hunting system works.
So anything, we can move on from catnip, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we can keep talking about it. We actually have a bunch of it growing back out in our garden. Couple stray cats come through there every once in a while, get high, keep on going. I think they go sleep in the barn after they're done. But but yeah, like I said, lots to talk about. I don't know if there's anything that comes to mind for you all. They kind of touched on a lot of different stuff.
The guide as the premise was actually something that I liked, to be able to kind of do a little bit of a walkthrough and show some of the places and some of the the intro steps, that it does create that sense of narrative right off the bat, where you talk to somebody and they give you a medallion, and then you go talk to somebody else and they're like, that medallion looks like crap. Here, let me polish that for you. And then you've got a polished shiny medallion. Like, how did that even itself creates like a potential lore bit? Well, who made these medallions? How long have they been sitting around? And why weren't they polished? Like, did they just pull up some old pile of like ancient alien $10 coins or whatever and like punch a hole through it and put it on the chain? It's like, all right, these are your proof of citizenship now. You know, take one and move along, new heroic citizen. And then likewise, can I check other people? Can I use it like a challenge coin? Hey, you over there. This is my medallion proving that I'm legally here. Now show me your medallion, otherwise I must strike thee down. And if they show theirs, it's like, all right, let's get a drink, bro.
We saw more than just the Riverlands.
Yeah. That big tree was nice to see too.
There was some concern that that's all there was to the game, kind of like Landmark.
Wait, you got to see what?
More than just the Riverlands.
In what? In
It's
what?
Lionheart in the Riverlands.
I mean, well, I feel like I'm starting to cross into an area that I can't say live, so I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
But yes, the tree. Actually, you mentioned the tree. Did anyone else catch the sort of brief comment that Steven said that something about the goddess of creation, and they said it's a gift from her,
Yeah,
and
that
he said something about the shape. Oh yeah, I can see that in the shape of the middle. And I really want. I paused it. I was like, what does he mean? He can see. My eyes couldn't pick
does
out a
it
pattern though.
does it
So
look like a phoenix or something? Maybe
no, not to me. That's why I
I'd have
couldn't.
to. It's literally in the background behind me, just there for a second, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I
but yeah,
paused the video on the wall. I was just trying to like I even went to the wiki, search, goddess creation and just see if there's any kind of emblems or anything. And I not that I could see. So I'm just left thinking like, what did he mean by that? What visually, what does it represent? What's it mean? I'm curious.
the big question for me is how much they're gonna allow us to deliver on their promise. You see it, you can visit it. Is it somewhere in the traversable gameplay area, or is it just floating out in space on its own and you can see it, but you're not going to be able to swim up the water flowing down from it or whatever? Um, that's something I'd like to maybe see more of. Yeah, Crow 3, you do make a good comment. The scale of Lionhold is impressive. And from what they depicted, it looks like there's a small area that's kind of like where the local settlers and civilization is at, and then this big expanse that, like you said, underground dungeons, and there were goblins on the bridge throwing rocks down at the guards and other things like that. So, just as you start going around and looking at things in the distance, you might see, oh, that looks like something of interest. Maybe I should check that out. And that's good. It's good for
Mm-hmm.
there to be, just visually
Yeah.
appealing things that you can see. And it's like, hey, maybe I want to see what's going on over there, see if I can do something
Yeah.
about it.
I mean, you certainly should be able to. I mean, Bill even mentioned a couple of times. Well, the jumping puzzle, which really wasn't a jumping puzzle. They were able to get up to these other areas, but when they were talking about that big bridge over the top with all the holes that people will come falling through, he had made a comment on that about how it. I don't know what words he actually used, but how difficult it was. Difficult, basically. You could get up there, but it'd be difficult to make that journey up to that bridge. So the idea, though, that you can get almost anywhere you see is pretty cool, pretty fun. So no imaginary walls, very real
Yeah, or at least
holes.
they didn't show them to us. But yeah, that's I actually didn't see, and I don't know if they're using dev cheats, but what the falling damage is like. Because if I remember correctly, in Alpha 1, it was brutal. You had to, like, really be careful that if you're going to try to drop down a distance, you had to hit every little foothold that you could along the way and heal up before you do the next drop and the next drop, like the to
Where were you
or-
going?
okay, in the cave with the mushrooms, for example, instead of going all the way down the ramp, I found it was easier to just kind of walk off the side a little, fall about a third of the way down, hang out for a sec, and then get the other 2/3 of the way down, hang out for a sec, and then finally go into like the area where the creatures were.
You didn't die from falling damage.
No, but I took falling damage. I didn't let myself die from it, but I took it.
I'm just
I
saying
was
that doesn't
very
sound
aware of it.
easier. That doesn't sound easier.
Nah, it's much easier than having a train of mobs behind me.
Okay.
I I want to go back.
This, this
Go ahead.
this was at the point where I'd already done the quest enough to know, all right, I need to go here, talk to that guy, grab these flowers, get the hell out. And so I already pretty well had the dungeon down by that point. It wasn't the first time I played through it, even the second. It was after I had done it a few times. Like, yeah, all right, I'ma just kind of fall here and get it done with and handle my business.
I don't remember thinking about the falling damage all that much, but I wasn't trying to fall, so
Yeah, I also did a lot of climbing and like trying to
apparently
see
so.
how high up I could get on like the mountains
Uh-huh.
and peaks and stuff. So, yeah, I found some falls here and there. Don't you worry.
Trying to think of what I was it PAX Day. There's something I played recently that I died a few times falling. I don't remember what it is. Might have
Might
been
have been
PAX Day.
backstage. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds.
Nightingale, maybe?
No, I didn't die in that game.
Yeah. But you could break a leg.
That's true. Um, they mentioned. I want to go back to this again because it sticks in my head, and they talked about it a little bit um, as part of the Alpha 2 guide. The lawless areas, and Steven still said that this is a representation of the
Open
oceans.
seas.
Yes, of the
The
open
open seas,
seas.
yeah.
And but I still can't get in my head how that is accurate. The open seas, you're in boats. The movement traversal is going to be much,
Just the PvP part. Just the
but
PvP part, not the.
even then, I don't. It's so different. I guess you're going to be able to board boats, but there'll be cannons and stuff like that. I just still
I
have
don't.
this paranoid component of me that's like, is this a test to see if this is an area they want to continue
Hmm.
later on, if it works real well? Because I just don't see how it's a really good representation of open seas. But
It's not a representation of open seas. It's a reputation of the flagging system.
the lack of the flagging system.
Yes.
Um, but having the highly the crafting components, the for higher end crafting there and all this sort of stuff. Um, I don't know. There's something that I just gets stuck in my
Where
head.
there's greater risk, there has to be greater reward.
Yeah. Don't know about that. I did like how they talked about it, over.
Wait. What do you mean you don't know about that? That's Steven's mantra.
Oh, I know that's his.
I know. Well, then that's
They've kind of
why it's
quit
set
talking.
that way.
Actually, now that you mention that, I think it was only said once this stream, and now that I think about it, they've not really said that very much in the last several streams. Risk versus
Yeah,
reward.
they've had to focus on bugs and other stuff.
Um, Lawless zones are just a systems test. It's a test for no corruption and their
Yeah.
ability to have different loot tables and mats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but again, the no corruption loot table mats thing doesn't really line up because the ocean is not. It'll have some mats, but it's not one for one. But whatever. It is. I was going to say something else. I don't remember what. Oh, he also, yes. He acknowledged, because this was part of that same conversation. I thought this was interesting. We've talked about it a lot with Alpha 1 and PvP having to be turned off because of how everyone just would kill each other. He actually did acknowledge that during the stream when they were talking about the lawless zones. I don't remember the exact words, but he mentioned something about the Alpha 1 PvP problems. Um, and that if that becomes an issue again, they might have to do the same thing and turn off
Hmm.
PvP in certain areas so that they can test systems. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, all I know is if I see red names in town and all the town guards aren't jumping on them, something's going wrong. That's all I'm going to say
well,
about, the corruption. Out in the world, out in the wild, sure. If you're going to get yourself in a little bit of trouble, go ahead. But the part of that I think's important is you go out and get yourself in a little bit of trouble. Now, until you've worked off that debt and you've gotten yourself out of the corrupted status, you're not an enemy of the state, you're an enemy of the people. And that's going to need to be mitigated by you getting your face ground into the dirt a bunch of times, I guess. See, that's the thing is if you're going to have if we're going to have a corruption system, then it needs to actually prohibit players from activities of normal civilized life. And so you don't have as big of a problem with gankers if gankers have a problem when they're running around with a red name going, ah, crap, I'm full of loot and I want to drop it off, but I can't go into town because I did a bad thing and I'm marked with the bloodstained red name tag and
Well, there are restrictions. You can't trade stuff
you
like
can't
that. So,
trade. Yeah, and it sounded like a freehold was going to be the place that you'd be trying to return your goods to, that you wouldn't just be walking like all the way up to wherever the bank's at without guards being like, "Hey, your name tag's red. We're going to stab you."
yeah, we'll have to see how much of that is in for the start of Alpha 1, Alpha 2 Phase 1, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kill the guards
Cuz like
anyways.
yeah, you might be able to kill the guards, but I have to imagine they're going to be kind of tough that they don't want them just to be pushovers.
Hmm.
Yeah, the corruption system is probably going to change a lot, and there's going to be a lot of push and pull. And I know they're not going to make a PvE server, but I wonder if they're going to make different rule sets that punish corruption more or less in different ways.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. Corruption system's going to change a lot. Again, I still think there's going to be not a lot, but I think there'll be a significant portion of people that'll want to play corrupted. That will be their kick. Um,
Hmm.
and I think we can all agree that it only takes a couple of those to really kind of ruin your day, um, and really kind of make the whole corruption system not worth anything. Um, you
I
know,
mean, did you play Lineage 2?
some not enough to say I'm a knowledge base of anything with it. So, but
Yeah,
Lineage 2 had,
apparently.
but didn't it have spaces that were free of PvP. Like not everywhere was PvP. Because that's what I can't wrap my head
Apparently.
around. Ashes of Creation, literally everything you can PvP everywhere. That's such a big
Yeah.
difference. When everyone talks about BDO and L2 and Arcade, it's like yes, they had PvP open areas, but they also had significant portions of places that were just PvE. So that's a big difference between these games.
Yeah.
Well,
If
they all say
somebody's
that
like
karma worked.
if somebody is at a crafting station full of all the materials that they're intending to use and they're looking at the interface and suddenly someone launches their maximum alpha strike damage followed by a series of stuns and CC effects and beat you into the ground because they had the leg up and it's only you two there, you lose a bunch of those materials, that is a very poor gameplay experience right there. That's the sort of thing that'll make people quit. And the more invested they are in the game and the bigger the loss is, the easier it's going to be for them to be like, all right, I'm going to unsub now, and before my month runs out, if something happens in this game that makes me want to keep playing, maybe I'll resub. But otherwise, I don't like that. I just lost my raid earned and, PvP zone earned resources to a lame ass ambush in town where you can just attack anybody and it's unmitigated. That is not the sort of gameplay experience. PvE or PvP notwithstanding, that's just a bad gameplay experience. If I'm playing Foxhole and I'm crafting something and an enemy comes in and shoots me, well, that's Foxhole. That's, it's closer to PlanetSide. You're in a PvP environment. You're supposed to be killing each other. That is the whole goal. It is one military versus another, pushing and pulling and moving resources across a large area. To be a hero of the realm, getting your ass kicked by another hero of the realm while you're trying to build things to make more heroic things happen, that does not feel in any way conducive to the lore and the gameplay and what is intended of the player. That's, I would say, it gets into the realm of ludonarrative dissonance, that you're trying to do something to help restore the world with your fellow comrades, and they're allowed to just go and stomp you out at the crafting station, take your stuff, and if they're able to get to a bank with it, or wherever they're allowed to store things, and they can stash it, well, sucks to be you. You've got to have bodyguards when you go to the crafting station. You've got to make sure they're people you trust that aren't gonna wait until you start crafting and then do that to you. So, that's the sort of stuff that I feel like they're gonna need to have areas where you can't PvP, you can't gank, or if you try it, a much greater force than yourself will automatically deploy to deal with you, like guards in the nearby area that will basically just stay on you till you're dead, or until you somehow manage to leave the region.
That's what players are supposed to guard people.
That doesn't sound like a proper gameplay experience for what they're trying to have here.
It's a social game, massively multiplayer. You're supposed to have players with you.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like, if I have other people that I'm going to a crafting station with, I'm kind of expecting they're also crafting.
I mean,
Now, the rules are different if we're talking about the burning altar that's been established by the Minotaurs or whatever, and upon the burning altar you can craft the most powerful scrolls in the game, but it's in a contested PvE and PvP contested area. The Minotaurs will go after you, and other players can go after you. Then it makes sense that you can get beat into the ground trying to make scrolls there. You're trying to do something in a contested area.
It's all contested.
If it's all contested, then it should all be just set up as a factional war. It should just be two sides, and at that point,
I mean, it's PvX, which means if you're going to make something that's going to give you a reward like crafting, there's got to be some risk.
You took the risk getting materials to begin with. You took the risk getting all the fuel and whatever cost it takes to make this stuff.
Risk ends when you're dead.
That's right. Because risk
no, it doesn't. PvP. Because if you come back and you're killed again, you're going to drop more resources. There isn't a oops, I just got killed limit preventing you from being re-ganked and re-looted for whatever else you might
I
have.
want to go. I want to go back on this in a way that is public knowledge because you mentioned solo. A couple of comments about
Mm-hmm.
solo. GOP crew mentioning unless you are. Oh, what did it? No, what? Well, chat just moved on me. Yeah, I feel like many soloists will be saddened by Vera. I don't know. Watching this Alpha 2, we'll take it through the viewpoint of this Alpha 2 guide. They had 3 people. Um, were they encountering anything that required 3 people? It's early. It's early on, granted. Um, from what
No.
you saw,
No. They didn't even get out of the tutorial as far as I'm aware. It seemed like they were they killed some sickly goblins that it looked like the guards there were already killing. And then after you do that, they went to town, and now it's town, and now there's guards, and there's no enemies, and you're not being attacked, or at least they weren't being attacked. No, none of that seems like anything. Nothing they showed seems like something you need more than one player for, other than watching people fall through the jump that you managed to get this time.
so we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I don't exactly know how like solo is going to be as well. I get the feeling that if there's a decent layer of information to know that somebody is a part of your node, for example, when you look at them and you target them, that maybe there's more of an incentive to work alongside them than try to kill them and take their stuff. And so playing with a sort of cluster of other players with similar goals is potentially a possibility. Sure, you might be trying to race to see who gets to tap the tree first or whatever. Whatevs. You know, if you're moving through as like this little cluster mob, you'll eventually everyone will get a shot at this and that. Or someone will die at some point by accident and you'll loot their stuff or whatever. It's like, oh, geez, sorry about Ronnie over there, but also he had some nice wood and I need more wood, so I'm gonna just take his wood.
You're gonna take his wood. It's rude.
Yep. Yep.
Worked hard for that wood. Um, what do
You
you think?
died.
What do you think? Uh, I like Ronnie's wood. God damn it! That just completely threw me off from what I was gonna.
Sounds like a good name for a zone. Put it in.
Ronnie's wood. Yeah, let's make that lore somehow. Can you do that? Can you make that lore? Ronnie's wood.
Do we know somebody who could make that lore?
I
Hmm.
really want to stumble onto something that is Ronnie's wood, or make it because there was some other kind of dumbass commission's name. Uh, make that a commission, Ronnie's wood. You just got to go chop down some wood. Um, anyways,
Well, as a quest name, I'd almost go with the movie like Chop Ronnie Chop. You know, Run Ronnie Run. Yeah. Anyway.
what do you think about the use of AI for their voice work?
I like that. I like the idea of it. I understand that there are concerns about royalties or the lack thereof for using voluntary in-house staff. And I personally, if I was working on the project, I would be trying to get as many characters sounding like something that I voice as possible because that sounds like a fun thing to do. And I would rather there be good quality or at least decent enough quality AI audio samples for my voice set to work from to give players a good experience. So there's like the push and pull of it, like the fact that, and of course there have been and are still strikes like SAG-AFTRA stuff going on because the use of voice and video and people's likeness in AI as a trained actor, as a union member, um, that's a sticking point. They just did a big old strike, so that stuff wouldn't be done, and then like push comes to shove, and it came around again pretty quickly. And so I can understand, you know, it's almost one of those like tough sort of things because like I like unions, I like why unions exist, and I want to support them, but I also understand that union has a lot of concerns and red tape and additional expense involved, and if we're trying to add features without adding a giant budget or budgetary addition to make it possible, that definitely makes sense for what they're doing. So I understand, you know, people will feel different ways about it from the ethics perspective and from um, the fact that it's being done as a volunteer thing, that it's not everybody at the studio being told they have to record voice lines, but being done voluntarily because they want to have their voice available as part of the samples. It's one of those like if you're working there and this is a passion project for you and you believe in it, it totally makes sense. You're already getting paid for other stuff. You want the game to succeed. And if people love your voice so much that they want to pay you for it, that's awesome. So charge for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But, you know, there's a lot of ways one way or the other. So off of that, what do you guys think about that from um the sort of financial standpoint and the decision to do it off of voluntary in-house staff voices?
We always did it off of voluntary staff voices. Um, at Activision, we also, you know, had paid actors at the same time. In place of paid actors, you know, that could be kind of sketchy, but I mean, I don't know. I was never a high enough paid actor that I'm gonna think negatively of it, and I'm enough of a low paid actor to be like, hey, it's gonna enhance my ability to get in my voice in games. Okay, I don't know.
I mean, I like that they're using their employees rather than just some, random AI generated voice um, on some website that they found. I mean, at least they're using their staff, which I think is a plus. Um, I think
And we have to hear it first. Have we heard enough of it?
Nah, we heard a little bit in the
some,
video.
yeah, there were
And it
some.
didn't sound bad. It didn't sound bad. It definitely helped move the game along and give a little bit extra. And I'll also add an extra one thing. What's nice about it is people who are visually impaired but are still able to play a game of this magnitude are able to enjoy the benefits of being able to understand what the hell is being talked about a bit better because the characters are saying it to them. So that's another nice sort of thing, you know. And I wonder, one of the things I wonder, they're probably reading stock lines, but I wonder if they're also allowed to like add some more lines or whatever, like by Graglin's scraggly beard. You know, just make something up that sounds right or whatever, or sounds, you know, like a dwarf saying by somebody something in some funny
Hmm.
way. And have
I
that start to become like a catchphrase for them, and then you'll hear like some of the other ones like by Graglin's scraggly beard. I didn't try as hard on that second one.
you keep going.
I mean, I could keep going.
Yeah.
I probably should have been a voice actor. Still can.
Um,
Like I said, I was working on the project. I would be in there like every day. It's like, yo, I got some extra hours. You got a hot mic?
you know, there was another um, they talked about a little bit that I thought was interesting. They mentioned having focus groups for some of the classes for the mayoral system. Um, what do you think about relying on focus groups? Like, do you think it's a good idea? Um, how much should they rely? Because here's my thought, right? Is like if you're bringing in 5 people, like is that going to lead to you changing something when you have 5 out of 100,000? I'm sure they're obviously smart about how they go about this, but I don't know. I'm just curious what you all think about focus testing. I wish I knew more about how they were using them.
Focus
Yeah.
testing, when you say it like that, is like a small group of people being given the opportunity to give feedback. I would imagine certain things that they're coming in wanting to get from the people and will prompt them, hey, before you play it, here's the things that we want to get some opinion of. So that way, instead of it just being general this way and that and whatever, that they can be talking about the content or the systems or the lore or whatever it is that they want to actually get focus on. If it's like get all of your biggest WoW, streamer people or your top raters from various games or whatever, and show them systems and be like, hey, what do we need to add to this to make it more accommodating to your guild or your community, so that way you have more tools and more ability to kind of work with this large influx of players that you're going to be bringing. That definitely makes sense. If it's pick any 5 Alpha 1 testers and ask them how they like Alpha 2 compared to Alpha 1. I don't think they need a focus group for that. We're already going to be giving them plenty of feedback, and they can just find the 5 people that they knew were already going to give feedback and see what they already said.
The mayoral system's a curious one of mine because there are going to be so few people who actually use it.
Mm.
Versus like a combat or crafting, where you're going to have the bulk, obviously combat, like the majority of your players will use crafting probably. But the mayoral system is going to be so unique in that what is it? It changes every month, right? And am I right in that? Am I making that up?
I think it's every in-game month. You're right, and I think it's an in-game week that the voting period goes on, or something, or maybe
It was
I'm
4 weeks.
talking about in-game, not IRL. But honestly, I don't know. Maybe they've changed it since Alpha 1.
But I don't know, it's just that's an interesting one to me because it is so you're just gonna have so few people using it. Um, Kind of your feedback, the effectiveness of the feedback on it. It's I don't know. One, I feel like actually when you're in game, it's going to be far less than other systems. But two, like how many of these people that are going to be play testing it now are going to actually be mayors that are using it later? Just interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. And there I would imagine be a subset of players that end up being mayors and keep being mayors over enough time that they're the ones who kind of understand and explore and perhaps discuss to others how the mayoral system works and how to make the best of it, or things along those lines. But I also wonder, during all the testing, if there's going to be like more chances for people to be the mayor when there's, for example, like a lull in the action and the player base is a little bit low, and it's towards the third quarter or so of a certain test phase, and maybe people are not necessarily burnt out, but they've seen what they've seen, they've given their feedback, they're kind of waiting for the next phase. That might be where there's a lot more opportunity for players to get in and play with the mayoral system. But just on the fact that there's only so many nodes in the gameplay world and there's only going to be so many servers, yeah, there's definitely a limit on how many players at once are able to interface with the totality of the mayoral system. So some of it's going to be following mayor live streams to see how it works. Bureaucracy in a video game. Tune in now and watch Phantom X be the all day bureaucrat of this burgeoning town over here. What decisions will he make? Will the people appreciate it?
I ain't got time
Well,
for that shit.
you won't know until you watch many hours of streaming and walking around and like making deals and contracts and walking through town and making sure everything looks like it's going right, not getting ganked as much as you can. Does the mayor even get a bodyguard in town, or you just go up and gank the mayor? Yeah, I don't like your policies.
That's a good question. How easily can you kill the mayor?
And does it close their mayoral interface while they're, dead and respawning, or can they still push the political buttons?
Since when did his beard become gray? It used to be black, and all of a sudden it was gray.
Who, Steven? What? Who?
You,
Me? That's kids.
as mayor.
Nah, this is pure children. That's all that is. Take your soul from you, drain you of everything. Anyways, this is more of a comment because this was something I noticed. He said, as Steven said, that everyone kind of agreed with. That I don't necessarily agree with. They were talking about the caravan system, and he was talking about how he was excited that it's an anxiety provoking gameplay loop.
Yeah,
And I'm
he loves
thinking,
that.
but anxiety is not what you're going for, though. Any
It's what he's
psychologist,
going for.
any
It's what he's going
psychologist in
for.
game theory will tell you anxiety is not what you want.
He's not a psychologist. He's a gamer.
Anxiety is not the same as excitement.
Nope, he meant anxiety
um, and
from risk versus reward. That's what he wants.
actually, because that's the only time I've heard it mentioned in the last couple of months. Bill actually is who chimed in and said, yes, that's the PVX, the risk versus reward. Like, anxiety is, for the most people, especially I've talked about flow before. A flow state is not an anxiety state. Anxiety is when your skills do not match up with whatever you're doing. You're overwhelmed.
Steven doesn't care about flow. He cares about risk versus reward.
So, convoluting with
I
dopamine
haven't
rush.
heard Steven
Yeah,
use
that's.
flow once. Has Steven talked about flow?
Oh no, that was me. Yeah, I mean
I'm
you're right.
saying that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, I see what you mean now. Yeah, I think that's probably what he was referring to, which is just more excitement, right? Dopamine
No,
rush.
he was talking about anxiety, not excitement.
So, anyways, I just caught that apparently their PVX is meant to cause anxiety. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, anxiety versus excitement brings me to the books of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings compared to the movies. The movies are this like big action romp and things happen like they do in the book kinda, but in the books they're all just going along scared absolutely shitless of everything and anything ahead of them, what could go wrong. They didn't just open the door on the day at the time with the key. No, they opened that door and then they sat outside for a while because they're like, all right, we got the door open. Now there's a fucking dragon in there. How the hell are we going to deal with that? And so, like, that's like, that's the kind of anxiety I feel like he's almost getting closer to with this, is that, like, slowly trudging along through the unknown and you've got no idea what's coming and how bad it could be. Fortunately, not every caravan is getting the ring to Mordor, so at least there's that.
So, but
We also kind of talked about caravans being necessary for the relic system a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, and that's kind of a departure from the stream before where he just snatches the egg off the altar and the dragon's pissed off. So that maybe kind of helps answer the question I had about, well, if I've got the relic, I can get on my horse and run while everybody else has aggro, right? But if it's a caravan, yeah, dragon's going to eat that caravan.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I almost like that as the idea that once you finally have the relic secured on the caravan, then the dragon's like, all right, I see you. It's time.
We got about 10 more minutes. I'm trying to think of what else. Anything else, y'all? I wrote this down. There was I think this was more of a question, but they talked a little bit about loot drops, including gear. And I feel like you've talked about that before, Neuro. That if I remember correctly, like it seems like over time they've sort of gone away from their original vision and they've added more and more traditional gear drops and gear score type stuff versus
They
components.
literally knew which enemies to kill around Carfin to get each of the specific items when they were demoing Carfin. Like they were quite literally, oh yeah, that's the one you want to kill and loot for this piece of equipment. As if it was this like very rote set in stone sort of thing that that enemy will always have that item should you be lucky enough to tag it and kill it and loot it. And that was when I was saying that's a huge departure from not everybody gets everything, or the sort of change to the player agency. Well, maybe you get some of the parts and you're able to either take a few different leg segment pieces as a crafter and make one whole set, or as a crafter deconstruct some of the things that you've gotten to be able to actually learn and understand how it's made. Maybe you've got like a little counter, salvage 3 of these, or however many to unlock the rest. If you're hearing a coffee grinder, there's definitely a coffee grinder. To be able to know how to make and reproduce that recipe. And so you're now having to engage in the economy and in trade to get access to the Carfin set items rather than just killing mobs around Carfin. And if you know the right ones to kill, you get the whole damn set. That actually feels anticlimactic. It feels like everyone's just gonna be running around in the Carfin set. That's boring. There's no difficulty if it's just a concession that you just walk up and get.
I mean, phase one.
Well, this was the Carfin demo. How long ago was that? Because I feel like that was after, well after the A1 playtest.
Yeah, it's still
But
phase one.
yeah, but that's I don't mind that there are completed drops. In fact, I like that bandits and other humanoids might drop a piece of equipment that's above and beyond the quality of what they normally carry, but I don't necessarily know if, again, going back to that Carfin example, killing certain enemies and getting the whole set pre-built is really the way it should go. That should be the lowest tier quality of it. And when the crafter actually makes the Carfin set items and they specifically include certain higher quality materials and potentially processing for it, that they're able to produce a better version than what you get off of these literally ancient corpses that happen to still have enough armor to be worth the fight.
Where I find all this curious with sort of increasingly going towards what's up, grumpy guy? Loot drops too. The reason they gave was, well, one of the reasons was that they want non-crafters to sort of have an entry point into the financial component of Ashes of Creation, which I understand, but there's other opportunities, right? I mean, you can sell components, you can sell, there's other ways to enter that market. Because where I get curious about this is, really at the root of Ashes of Creation, the whole reason and rationale for PVX combat is financial. It's your materials, your items, the stuff that you craft, the stuff that you create.
and your glint that can be sold for money, that you don't get gold drops, you get glint drops, and those can also be lost through being killed. So even if you're not a gatherer whatsoever, not a processor whatsoever, there's still something worth killing you for.
Yeah. But that's my curiosity, because they also mentioned crafting as a core loop. That it's an absolute core loop. But so you have these very important statements about crafting and how it's a hugely important part, but then you're adding in these other ways to influence sort of financial markets. I don't know. It's a curiosity to see how it all plays out. Um, I guess a lot of that will depend on things like how rare are drops. Are item drops easy to come by? Are they not easy to come by? How do they compare with crafters items?
You can come by them. Can you keep them? That's the other question.
Probably. I mean, you wouldn't drop it, right? It's not a material.
Yeah. Yeah, completed items don't drop, which is why I've said if you're a crafter that's being fed materials, you're at the top of the food chain, because once you've completed something, it can't be taken from you. It might be damaged if you're carrying it and you're killed. I think they've given that as an example, but I don't believe there's any restriction on trading a damaged item. So, oh no, it's at 90 out of 100 durability. Someone's going to have to repair that with a fresh chunk of steel, but it's,
Yeah.
except unless you go corrupt. Exactly. That is the one other thing that we don't know to what extent you have to be corrupt, and how I don't know, scant on materials you have to be before it starts going after your gear and your completed items. But then within completed items, I also don't know how frequently it's going to drop things that you're equipped with, or completed items in your bag, or if it's going to focus more on like your potions and your consumables. And that, if you're completely went out in the world carrying nothing, just your gear, and you go corrupt and someone kills you, that you drop one of your pieces of gear. Well, that's a pretty big deterrent. Uh, that I guess means gankers want to make sure that they're carrying ganked materials with them to help offset the drops and stuff and what they lose when they eventually get killed. Maybe for the first time, maybe multiple times, depending on whether one death clears their corruption or not.
Wizard asks thoughts on combining craftable gear of the same kind for an upgrade. Yeah, and I think that solves your repeated the problem with having to repeatedly make stuff. I mean, you can actually, and then none of it be useful.
Well, there's definitely the idea of the enchanting system to +1, +2, +3, and potentially over enchant and break something. So I guess that could be a way to do it. You got 2 level 0s. You make a +1. You do it again. You make 2 more. You smash them together into a 1. Smash 2 1s together into a 2, and then you've got to do that same process. I don't know, 12 times or something to get your +3, or maybe 8 times, or I don't know how many. Go through the math or whatever, but basically, if it's an incrementally larger amount in exchange for not having to enchant, in order to be able to make a high enough item to mash into the version you already have. But huge but on that. I like big butts, because the but on that is that they also have to have been made with the exact same component at the exact same skill level, etc., because otherwise they're going to have different components to them that it was even made with to begin with. Yeah, exactly. Uh, so that's the other thing that it brings to the table, is that if I've made a great sword with a ruby in it, and I've made a different great sword with a sapphire in it, and they have 2 different elemental effects as a result, it's going to be real hard to mash those 2 together like Voltron and make a +1 out of it, because it'll have to reconcile those differences. That's kind of messy. And then that also creates this other wacky thing well, can I just go to the vendor and buy like 50 copies of the high quality, plate mail and just mash them all together? It's like, well, I guess that would be the way to do it. If you can just buy them off a vendor, they're definitely going to be the same version. So that's enchanting was scroll based. I think enchantment as the +1 and beyond is going to be different than after creation bonus effects that can be applied. I have no idea though, because I don't know. I haven't seen that far in the crafting system, and I don't think we will for a while.
Yeah, the wiki mentions scrolls. Yeah, at the end of the day, we always talk about Ashes of Creation being a PvX game. Ashes of Creation, at its core, is a crafting and financial markets game with combat surrounding that. That is what Ashes of Creation is.
That reminds me of the way Eva sometimes described spreadsheets in space.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, otherwise, why else are you having PvX? It's caravans transporting goods. It's taking over castles that get taxes. It's nodes that maybe aren't doing what you want in a crafting way, so you destroy them. I want to
No,
be.
it's really the financial stuff is there in order to supplement the PvP, but you know,
Well, I mean, I guess you could say both ways, but you know, the the reasons given, the rationales given for PvX
yeah, it's the
exist.
rationale. You're trying to
Mhm.
rationalize the PvP, but it's really about the PvP, obviously.
But all driven through finance and crafting.
It's not driven through that, but it's supplemented by that.
Well, we are at
There's,
nine.
yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say there's a lot where they both play on each other, and that's kind of important. It's really looking at all of the systems as a whole and how they interact together.
To
That
complement the PvP, yes.
to complement the PvP and how the PvP then complements those other systems.
Well, PvP exists in other games that don't have this kind of financial component.
Yeah, well, there's
So,
other features to those games too.
There's on other
Um,
genres of game. That's true.
PvP without cause or meaning gives you New World. Gives you a lot of things.
yeah, I was just about to say New World before you said that. Yeah, New World. I like the crafting system a lot. PvP was, again, like I say with this game, narratively, it's bad. Narratively, you are harming humanity's chance at survival on Magic Evil Island by fighting each other, by forming up into factions arbitrarily. Um, it doesn't actually help. It doesn't work, and it's I found it. I used that word earlier, ludonarrative dissonance. It is counterintuitive to the actual stated goals of the game, why you're on that island to begin with, and what you're trying to do to not be on it, or maybe survive it at least.
Well, we about out of time, so we can save some of this stuff, whatever's left over, for next week. Like I said, crazy enough, we have no other live streams before we have Alpha 2 to go over. That's I didn't even think about it until I was watching the show today. Um, Also, if you are in have been in Alpha 1 but have not been in Alpha 2 or pre-Alpha 2 yet, they mentioned that they, I think in the next 1 to 2 weeks or something like that, plan to have all their Alpha 1 testers in. So definitely be watching your emails. Actually, if you're in our Discord, I think I tend to try to say check your emails because we get a heads up when they send out stuff. So definitely be paying attention to that if you are not yet in the testing phases. Like I said, we got a couple of weeks here, and actually went how long until Alpha 2? So we have how many Sundays until then? 1, 2, 3. So a month from now, 4 weeks from now, we'll potentially be able to do this actually while we're playing. At least be able to talk more about what we're doing versus things we cannot talk about right now. In 3 weeks, we're going to have a special surprise, 3 Sundays that I've kind of hinted at and alluded to, but we'll get to talk more about that here soon. So we might spend the next 2 weeks, once there's a go ahead to talk about it, kind of asking people thoughts and questions and stuff. So, yeah. Any last words for today?
Nah, I'm looking forward to seeing how things go with the roll up to Alpha 2 Phase 1.
All right.
It'll be cool.
All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with
Eager
us.
to hear some AI voices.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will be back here. I think we'll be back here next Sunday. Again, I'm trying to think in my head if I have anything going on. I don't think so. So we will be back here next Sunday. As always, join us in Discord if you want to chat. And thanks for hanging out. We will see you all in a week.
Hey, everybody.